You have a quorum and it's 5:35 p.m.
Okay, so so we will be official now, and I will call to order the February 8th, 2023 meeting of the Bond Measure Oversight Committee for Peralta Community College District. And roll call, please.
Jeff Cambra,
Present.
Marcus Crawley,
Here.
Andrea Dawson,
Present.
Benjamin Scott, I don't see, and Yusef Herbert, I don't see. But with 3 out of 5, you have a quorum.
Okay. And so, and then with this, we have an informational item, and that is that Dr. Stacy Thompson resigned from the committee due to other commitments that she had that didn't allow her, as she said, ample time to do what she felt she needed to be a committed member to the committee. So we'll miss her because she really helped us, and in particular, she and Marcus Crowley worked to get a more cohesive and usable website from our perspective for our committee. So I thank her for that. And I will also say about the membership item that we would, of course, like to get updates on what the college is doing to get new members for the 2 vacant seats. So we hope that there's continued outreach to fill those seats. Mark Johnson and Etheria Smith, if you're on.
So I can field that. So we have a call to students every time we send out a bond announcement, a Bond Measures Oversight Committee announcement. Because of the recency of Dr. Thompson's resignation, we have not started actively promoting to fill that position yet. But
Okay.
And then I'm sorry.
Go ahead. Yes.
I said, and I will reach out to folks to see if I can get that at-large seat filled and to get you applications in.
Thank you. All right, thank you. So hearing we have yes, member comments on this item.
I have a comment on that item.
Okay, Marcus Crowley, yes.
Yes. So we looking to replace Dr. Thompson as soon as possible so that we have a full committee as soon as possible. And I know that in the past, the district has tended to only appoint people starting with the fiscal year. And I looked at the bylaws, and the bylaws says the appointment shall be 2 years, which is actually at odds a little bit with the legislation. The legislation says a minimum of 2 years. So I'm hoping that the district fills that seat as soon as possible and appoints the person to have a term 2 years plus a few months, so that we have the benefit of the new person not only for 2 years, but also filling out at least the rest of this year up to the end of the fiscal year.
Okay, I appreciate your comment, Marcus Crowley, and I will say that I appreciate your comment, and I will say that folks can serve on this committee for 3 consecutive terms, which are by the regulation, yes, they're 2 years per term. So a person that doesn't serve a full term that would come in now would still have the benefit of being reappointed to serve a second full term. And that's actually at the discretion of the district, whether they reappoint folks for the following 2 terms. So I think that with that understanding, the district could comply with the someone serving 2 terms.
Well, I understand the statute a little bit different than you just explained, because I think that the statute says the appointment shall be at not less than 2 years. So for somebody to say, oh, well, we've got this other way of thinking about it, and we're going to appoint them for less than 2 years because of our particular way of looking at it, is just at odds with the plain language of the legislature. So therefore, I am advocating that the district appoints Stacy's replacement in compliance with the legislation for a minimum for not less than 2 years, and do so as soon as possible.
Okay, so
The legislation doesn't say anything about that the term goes with the person. It just says the not less than 2 years.
I understand that, Marcus. And
Okay.
so I appreciate it, and I want to move on because we've got a lot to cover tonight, and there's 3 of us that make a quorum, and I want to get to to the auditor's presentation. So can we move on, and we can put this back on the agenda next month if you'd like, okay?
Okay.
So we're on item 2, approve the meeting agenda. And I would say that we've already talked about 5, a membership update. And so we'll be able to skip that. And I would say I would like to have public comment on non-agenda items to be 5 minutes this evening for the benefit of getting to the meat of the meeting, as I call it. Okay. So with that, I'd like to propose that we approve the meeting agenda.
Accepted.
So Marcus, do you concur?
Yes, I concur that we approve the meeting agenda.
Okay, so now the next item is item 3, and it's approve the meeting minutes from November 9th, 2022.
I have a comment on that.
Okay.
And that is regarding our minutes. About a year ago, we talked about the difference between approved minutes and draft minutes. And at that time, I asked that the website show that the draft minutes are only the minutes that have not been approved, and that therefore the approved minutes will not be labeled as draft minutes. They'll be either they're just minutes or they are approved minutes. And even though the minutes that are on the website don't say draft as a across the minutes themselves, but the label on them still says draft minutes. And I would like to see that corrected, because they're not draft minutes once we've approved them.
Well, I
Mr.
think
Keller,
that's
I think, sorry, Chair Dawson.
I was just saying, it's a fair request. Can we ask staff to take care of that?
Yes, precisely. That is something that we can do. And that also, that doesn't pertain to this particular agenda item, though.
Right, that's was public comments there. So I'm making the public comment about that.
Okay, so let's move on to the next item.
Chair Dawson,
we have to, I'm sorry, we have to go back to November 22nd meeting minutes, yes. And do I have a motion to approve the November meeting minutes? I will motion to approve them.
I will second.
Do we have a consensus on that, Marcus?
Yes,
Okay, so the November 9th, 2022 meeting minutes are approved.
Great.
Thank you. All right. So we are on to the next item, which is public comments on non-agenda items. So do we have any public comments on non-agenda items? Do we have any public that you're aware of? Staff, Mark Johnson or Etheria?
There are a number of guests that are attending, but none have raised their hand for public comment.
Okay. So hearing none, we will go on to the next agenda item. And could you pull up the agenda again?
Sure.
Thank you. I didn't print it. I had meetings at 7 o'clock this morning. So it's just like,
So at this point, we're ready for the audit
which
report.
is wonderful. Okay, so next we will hear from Ben Levitt, and it is a presentation of the bond audit report. It's an informational item to our committee. And this is an important item for us because it predicates what we do, and that is to write an annual report published on the district's work in the past. Well, it will be for the years presented. Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Levitt.
Thank you, Chair Dawson. Members of the committee, thank you so much for having me. It's my pleasure to, on behalf of our firm, speak to the results of the audits of Measure A and G for fiscal 22. I'm going to be starting with the financial statements for A and G and then going on to the performance report after that. And I just wanted to check in to see if it would be helpful for me to share my screen or if the members of the committee have the documents already pulled up in front of them.
I have the documents, but it might be easier for everybody to follow along. I think if they were there.
I agree.
Yeah,
That sounds good. I'm going to share my screen then right now, and I'm going to pull up starting with the cover page of the financial statements. All right, and if you could just confirm, I've got it a bit zoomed in, but that you're able to see that first cover page of the Measure A and G financial statements report.
Yes, sir.
Okay, terrific. Before I dive in, I just want to preface this.
Is Ben frozen for everybody, or is it just me?
I'm not getting any audio
Yeah.
either. He's frozen.
He's frozen.
Okay, is it
Now
any better now?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Okay, fingers crossed that doesn't happen again. I just wanted to extend our appreciation to district staff for making this a very smooth process. Dr. Jones and his team over fiscal, as well as Vice Chancellor Smith and her team over facilities were tremendously supportive, getting us everything that we needed to be able to perform our work and ultimately opine in a timely fashion and be able to bring these results to you today, well in advance of the required deadline for bond audits. So like I said, I'll be starting with the financial statements. I'll be going through at a fairly high level. Please do not hesitate to stop me if there's any questions on any aspect of the report or any.
You're frozen again, Ben.
You may want to turn off your camera.
Relating to.
Ben, you may want to turn off your camera while you're presenting to preserve your bandwidth.
Still frozen.
or hang up and start
Still
over.
frozen. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not.
We lost them all together. Yeah.
Well, maybe he's hung up and is hoping to call back in, hopefully.
I think so.
So sorry about that. Are you able to hear me okay now?
Yes,
Mhm.
sir.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Let's try that one more time.
Sure. Ben, you may want to turn off your camera while you're presenting so that the
Okay.
bandwidth won't continue to stop. Or,
Let me give that a shot.
yeah.
All right. So just to confirm, are you still able to hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, perfect. All right. So I'm going to go to reshare my screen. And if you could just quickly confirm that it's still showing that cover page of the financial statements. All right, perfect. So diving right into the financial statement document, which is the larger of the two audit reports related to Measure A and G. Moving past the table of content.
Still getting a weak response from you, Ben.
Are you able to hear me okay now?
Yes.
Okay. Boy, I've never had this issue before. I'm so sorry. I'm sure it's on my end. I'll have to look into that. Let me know, and I'll plan to stop and go back if there's any more hiccups.
You're good right now, so.
Okay,
go on.
let's run with it then. So the independent auditors report, we opine on the presentation of the overall financials, and very pleased to report that based on the results of our testing for fiscal 22, we are able to provide an unmodified opinion over the Measure A and G financials for fiscal 22. That is the highest quality opinion that an auditor can provide, and is to say, based on our testing, these financial statements.
You're going in and out again, Ben. Sorry.
If I was to call in on my phone, in addition to be on my computer, would that perhaps be helpful? It seems like there's something wrong with my computer connection.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mark.
Okay, let me give that a try. I'm gonna call in right now.
Yeah, Ben, the one thing, just to be sure, you only have one audio volume up, otherwise we'll be getting feedback.
That's a good point. Yep. Absolutely. All right. All right. Turn this all the way down. Okay, how about now?
Better.
Okay.
There you go.
All right.
Yeah.
All right, fingers crossed. So I'll be sharing my screen through the computer, and I'll be using the phone for audio, and just let me know if I cut out at any time. All right, so moving past that independent auditor's report where we express our unmodified opinion, the highest quality opinion an auditor can render over the overall financials, we go to the next section, the financial section, which begins on document page 4, PDF page 7. And that is the start of the core financials for Measure A and G for fiscal 22. So here on the balance sheet, on document page 4, we're showing the assets and the liabilities of the program at that snapshot date of June 30, 2022. And so we can see the two measures presented alongside one another. We see the assets of both programs principally held in cash and investments, as well as due from other funds. And then we see the liabilities amounting to accounts payable balances for both of the measures, resulting in a restricted fund balance of Measure A of $36.583 million as of June 30, 2022, and $12.883 million for Measure G as of June 30, 2022. And then perhaps even more informatively, on the next page, document page 5, PDF page 8, we see the activity of both of the measures during the fiscal year ended June 30, 2022. So we can see, for instance, for Measure A, revenues related to those interest earnings on funds held in county treasury amounting to 438 some thousand. And then for Measure G, just over $241,000 for the year. And then all of those categories of expenditures relating to facilities acquisition and construction. So we can see those broken out by salaries and benefits, services and other operating, and finally capital outlay, amounting to, for Measure A, just over $6.9 million, and for Measure G, $15.439 million. And so those expenditures relative to the revenues are going to result in deficit net activity for both measures for fiscal 22, which we would expect in any year where there's not an issuance of new debt against the authorizations, ultimately bringing down the restricted beginning fund balances to our ending fund balances that we see right above that bottom bold line, right there on document page 5, PDF page 8. And so moving past the core, the next section, the notes to the financial statements, are going to provide additional detail on the balances contained within the core. So starting out, note number 1 is where management of the district is going to provide some useful accounting policy information concerning both of the measures. Note number 2 is where the district provides additional perspective on those balances held by both measures as cash in county treasury. And then going on to, there must be something wrong with my connection. I can see that it's dropped. I think, just to confirm, are you still able to hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me try to share again, or I wonder, Mark, do you have access to the PDF by chance?
I do.
If you wouldn't mind sharing, I feel like you have a much better connection than I do, and I can, as I go, provide all the page number references, if that wouldn't be too much trouble.
Oh,
And
technology.
We're Ben, this is the financial report? Or
That's
the
exactly
performance
right.
audit? Okay.
Yeah, this is the financial statement. And so we're on right now PDF page 13 or document page 10 on that financial statement document. It's so funny. I can't tell you how many presentations I've given with this exact same setup, but this is the first time it's let me down. It's doing so in grand fashion. I'm gonna have to look into what's going on. Definitely jump on with our IT after this. Perfect. So yep, it's just gonna be 3 more pages down onto page PDF page 13 of 19 is gonna bring us to a page where at the very top of the page we'll show note number 4. Beautiful. Yep. So these next notes listed out by management on PDF 13, document 10 are going to provide some additional detail on the accounts payable and the interfund balances contained within the core. And then commitments and contingencies. I always like to take a moment to explain the meaning of construction commitments as opposed to accounts payable. Accounts payable is going to relate to an obligation for activity that's already been expended. So picture a situation where work has been performed and a vendor has issued an invoice for funds that are owed by the district, whereas a construction commitment, which is what's being shown on note 6, is where the district has entered into a contract. The board has ultimately approved the contract, but the work has not yet been performed. So this is a little bit farther out on the horizon, but showing kind of what's in line for the program in the year to follow, looking kind of forward into fiscal 23 from the standpoint of the financials kind of locked in the past at June 30, 22. So that's kind of what is being spoken to in that section on note 6. And then scrolling onto the next page, we get into the other reports section, and that other report is going to be shown on PDF 15 document 11, and that is the second of the 2 auditors' reports contained in the financial statement. And so this is the audit report where we speak to our testing over internal controls and controls over compliance. The technical term for this report is our Yellow Book report. And in performing this testing, ultimately what we're looking at is the control environment that's in place over measures A and G during the fiscal year ended June 30, 2022. And based upon that testing, as indicated on the very next page, PDF 16 document 12, in that top paragraph, in the bottom section of that top paragraph, we do note one exception to that control environment as item or finding 2022-001. And aside from that one notated exception, we note no other exceptions to the control environment. And furthermore, we note that exception as a significant deficiency rather than a material weakness. And the difference between the two, a significant deficiency, even though the terminology is a little clunky, is the less significant, the less important of the 2 categories of findings. A material weakness is a more important, more consequential finding. So this is the lower grade of the 2. And as we move past this report, we're going to get to the findings and responses section in the final part of this audit, where I'll be speaking to that exception noted over the Yellow Book report in detail. And so as we scroll onto page 17, we see kind of that page break for findings and responses. And then on PDF page 18, document page 13, is where we expound on that exception in detail. And so basically what we saw based around our testing of, as we note in the condition context paragraph, 55 bond warrant selections, were 2 different types of exceptions, one example of each that came up in our sample. So relatively isolated, but still something that based on the sensitivity that goes along with bond audit testing, we did believe warranted being considered a reportable finding, things that we would ultimately bring to your attention in the form of this audit report. And so I'll speak to those right now. The first of those 2 items in that sample consisted of essentially a piece of work that was expended for by the bond that was not properly approved. And when I say properly approved, it was not anything that was out of context with what's allowable for the bond. It was a vendor that the district has worked with in a long-standing relationship, but nonetheless, there was not a documented hard approval that we were able to identify in advance of those services being rendered to the bond program. So for this particular invoice, which related to work performed by an attorney working on the bond program, we noted an amount of work that was performed in September relating to a contract that was not formally approved until the following month. And it was the only item of that particular type that the only item of that particular type of exception that we noted during our testing, but still something that we believed warranted disclosure in the form of a significant deficiency. And the second of those 2 items noted from that population of 55 selections was a selection that was based on our testing miscoded to fiscal 22 when it in fact related to fiscal 21. So we noted an item from a contractor for work performed through December 31st of 2020 that was coded to this bond year, fiscal 22, when based on the detail of that item, it appeared that, and ultimately management agreed, that it should have been coded as part of fiscal 21. For both of those items, the dollar amounts involved were relatively minor. We do note them as control exceptions. In discussing them with district management, management agreed with our perspective, and we came away with a very strong sense that management had a very good handle on what controls would need to be looked at closely and ultimately put into place to be able to assure the committee and the district's board that these controls would be in place starting with the very next fiscal year, the one that we're in right now, fiscal 23. So both of these items are things that we're going to be paying especially close attention to as we perform our work for fiscal 23, the year that we're just kind of jumping into right now. But based on the response and the action taken in response to the finding is noted at the bottom of this, PDF 18, document 13, we came with a very strong impression that management has these recommendations for correction well in hand. And then moving past this comment, we note that in the prior year, on the very last page of this financial statement, there were no exceptions, no findings or question costs identified during fiscal 21 by the prior auditor. And so no items to discuss or provide a status update on coming out of fiscal 21. And with that, before I jump into the performance report, just want to pause for a moment and check in with the committee to see if there's any questions related to any aspect of the Measures A and G financial statement or any of our procedures performed over the financial statement for the fiscal 22 year.
Questions from Marcus Crowley
Yes.
or Jeff?
I want to thank Ben for a very good report. It enlightened us, me in particular, about what are the problems and what are the procedures. So I thought this was one of the best financial reports that I've seen.
I appreciate that, sir. Thank you for the feedback.
Jeff, do you have any comments?
So the only one that I really have, I would echo Marcus's comments, but I've seen enough reports now that keep referring back to the impact of COVID. And
yes,
we are now 3 years into COVID and nobody in a restaurant is wearing a mask anymore. I think our supply chains have somewhat stabilized now. So Ben, I'm just interested, are there still COVID impacts that we need to worry about?
I think that what we've seen kind of across the state in working with, a number of your fellow districts is that it seems like if there's one lingering impact of COVID, it's in the form of pretty dramatically increasing costs in construction, which doesn't impact the audits per se, but definitely impacts the programs, definitely impacts, forward-looking budgets. But to your point, you're absolutely right. The world's mostly returned to normal. And certainly, the mystery that was there in the early stages of COVID is very long gone, which is, a wonderful thing to see.
Yep, absolutely. Just wanted to check to see that my restaurant gauge for COVID being over is accurate.
Thank you so much. I think Etheria Smith would like to say something. Yes.
Thank you, Chair Dawson. I do want to just comment on the question. We are still feeling the impact of the delay in supply chain, and we're getting very long lead times. People are, although they're getting back into the market and getting up and running, we still have very long lead times from 12 to 24 weeks for delivery. We're also feeling the escalation costs, and those have ranged between a 15% to sometimes 25% increase. Some things are beginning to come down. So although we have not pushed forward with some of our projects, we see that some of the cost is beginning to come down, but not all at one time. It's very, very slow. Thank you.
I agree with that. And so Jeff, you have a
Yeah,
comment?
so if there, just to follow up on the cost increases, so then when the district originally contracted, were there provisions within these contracts for escalation in pricing based on demand, or are the contractors stuck eating these additional costs?
I wish we could say that the contractor was stuck,
I didn't think so.
stuck eating the cost, but there was a 20% contingency that's added into some of our budgets. So we're prepared. And also we did add a bit of an escalation cost, and some of that is, being utilized and tapped into at this time.
Great. So would we, on the committee, be able, are the reports reflected in such a way that we'd be able to show, or the public would be able to see, that we were contracted at this amount, but at the end, excluding change orders and all the rest, just because of this escalation in cost, there was an increase in the expenditure beyond what maybe would have showed up, I think, in, Ben, what you called construction commitments earlier on?
Yes. So when we come back and AECOM does their update, I will specifically ask them to show what was the estimated cost and what was the contracted cost, because you can do all the estimates in the world, but until it goes into contract, it doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, absolutely. And just in case the public is reviewing these financial statements and then someone does the comparison between what it looked like we were spending and then a 15%, I'm assuming that the actual time delays or something that are just going to happen anyway through normal construction, there's going to be extended because of, as you said, supply chain issues.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So any other comments or thoughts on this? Hearing none. From Mr. Levitt?
All right, hearing none, I will proceed on to the performance report. And Mark, if you wouldn't mind just pulling that up, and I'll provide page references as we go through it. The performance audit is going to be the shorter of the two audit reports. And it's kind of unique from an audit perspective, because it really only asks for us to answer a single question, which is, have any funds been spent outside of the provision of the measures A and G ballot language? And the interesting thing attached to that question is, based on our interpretation, which is shared by all the major audit firms servicing the California Community College District system, and by extension, all the attached Prop 39 bond programs, there is no materiality in that equation. So, for instance, even in a program with a very significant burn rate, an exception to performance, an exception to the ballot language of even, say, $100, based on our interpretation, our fellow peer audit firms' interpretation, would warrant an exception to performance. And so the performance audit is where we speak to that testing. And for this one, I'm actually going to scroll past the independent auditor's report, where we opine on performance. That's located on document page 3, PDF page 3, document page 1. And I'm going to go into the body of this report to speak to what's contained in this report, and ultimately our methodology in testing performance. So Mark, if you just scroll to PDF 5, document 2, this is the first page kind of past that auditor's report, where management provides some legislative historical background on Proposition 39 type bonds, and then underneath the legislative history section provides the background of measures A, and then on the following page, document 3, PDF 6, measure G in particular. One nice thing with what management has provided is the ballot language for each of those measures in full text. So we get not only the information on the election dates, on the authorization amounts, but we also see the ballot language for measure A on the very bottom of document page 2, and then the ballot language for measure G on the second paragraph from the top on document page 3. which is a tremendous thing. We really like when management provides that detail to make all of the information pertaining to the programs just really transparent, not only for the committee, because everyone on the committee is already well aware of these elections, but for the broader community as well. Right past the detail on Measure G, the authority for the audit essentially just gets into how Prop 39 bonds require a number of steps to be taken to be able to validate and ultimately kind of safeguard the trust of voters of the district that elect to voluntarily increase the taxes on their parcels in order to make these facilities possible. One thing being appointment of a Citizens Oversight Committee, and another step right alongside that being the requirement of the annual independent financial and performance audit. And then on the very next page, scrolling down onto PDF 7, we get into that performance audit itself. And particularly on PDF page 8, document page 4, the methodology, all of those bullet points are the steps that are taken to really answer that one single question. And I want to direct the committee's attention to the 6th bullet point down, starting, we selected a sample of expenditures for measures A and G. And I just want to highlight that because that is probably the single most important step across our performance testing, a very large raw expenditure sample. So for the two measures, our sample consisted of 1.61 million and 3.298 million for measures A and G respectively, representing 23.3% and 21.4% of the total raw expenditures during fiscal 22. That is significantly larger percentage coverage than a typical audit would involve. That goes, far beyond our practitioners' guidance on sample sizes, but the industry kind of perspective is that for performance, the bar is very high. This is an extremely sensitive test where we're really going in both directions, not only getting a high degree of coverage, but also looking to see if any item from within that sample, no matter how minor, is in exception or outside of compliance with the ballot language. That is something that we are required to bring to the committee's attention in this report. And during fiscal 22, we do note one exception noted as finding 2022-001 in our conclusion at document page 5, PDF page 9. And then going past that into the schedule of findings and responses, I'm able to speak to that in detail. And so going to that final section right now, located on PDF 10, document 6, finding 2022-001 expenditures. What we're noting here is different from the items noted on the financial statement exception. That exception was really geared toward our control testing and what we noted as a deviation or an exception to a breakdown, a minor breakdown in the control environment. Here, what we're noting is an item that is outside of compliance with the ballot language, and particularly a loan exception, which was charged to the building fund during fiscal 22, despite being of an operating nature. Ultimately, we noted an $1,838.68 expenditure relating to a vendor for library system software, which is entirely allowable to the district. There is no disputing the business nature of that expense to the district. However, based on our understanding, looking at the details of that expenditure, speaking about that item with management, we came to be of the opinion that it was of an operating nature and not related to putting facilities into place, which is ultimately the bar that's set behind the ballot language for both of the measures. And so we recommended to management that be an item that's ultimately reimbursed to the program from unrestricted funds. Management agreed with us and has made that reimbursement and has also put in place steps to better ensure that going forward, even minor exceptions such as this are not coded to the bond program. But in a large program, it's always a challenge to do that. We appreciate management being very forthright with us and really immediately kind of working with us to better understand, research, and ultimately resolve this item. So nonetheless, in spite of how minor it is, $1,800 in programs with a burn rate of millions, we did believe that it warranted significance to show in the performance report as a significant deficiency exception to that report. And we present it in this year's report. And then finally, on the very last page of the performance report, PDF page 11, document page 7, we note that there were no exceptions noted to performance by the prior auditor in fiscal 21, and so no items to provide a status update on here in as we review fiscal 22. And with that, I want to open up for any questions the committee has on any aspect of the performance audit or any of our procedures performed over performance for fiscal 22.
Thank you, Mr. Levitt. Sorry, Chair Dawson, before we answer the questions, I just wanted the record to show that Yusef Herbert has joined us. So
Yes,
we have a bigger quorum. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I was going to mention that too. So thank you. So Marcus Crowley, you have a question?
Yes, I do. Ben, when you are comparing expenses to voter approved programs, how do you determine whether you're looking at the ballot question, which has rather vague purposes, or you're looking at the facilities master list, which is linked to the ballot question?
Yeah, that's a great question. So ultimately, it's the less restrictive of the two, which is the one that's authoritative for the performance audit. So between those two criteria, let's say, for instance, we have an expenditure which was not on the master plan, but nonetheless falling within compliance to the ballot language, that would pass muster for performance from the perspective of the audit, even though it might very well be something that would be questioned both by the committee and by the district's governing board, and rightfully so. So the performance section is something that really is focused just on that, as you correctly characterize, fairly broad ballot language, but nonetheless, one aspect of that ballot language is that these items being expended for the programs, for the bond programs, cannot be of an operating nature. There's a number of restrictions in place from that language, but the one that impacts this expenditure is that this was not an item, and management agreed, that was related to putting any kind of facility into place, but rather an ongoing operating item that was something that would be contracted for in a year with the bond program, or in a year extending beyond the life of the bond program. And so that was our basis for determining this particular item to be an exception during fiscal 22.
Thank you.
Of course.
Oh, thank you. So other questions? Jeff? Yusef, Herbert, do you have questions? Well, hearing none, I will ask if there are any public present that have questions. Theory or Marcus, Mark Johnson, are you, who is monitoring if public has questions?
Nobody has their hand raised.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Thank you so much. So we will move on to item 7. Oh, thank you again, Mr. Levitt. We really appreciate it, and good report. And thank you.
Thank you, Chair Dawson. I just want to, again, thank the committee for the invitation. Very much look forward to providing status update on these items going into fiscal 23 and continuing to work to serve the committee and the board.
Yeah, thank you. And I actually want to commend staff for doing a good job, and it was a thorough report. And so moving in the right direction, good direction, and good program this year. Thank
Absolutely.
you. Yeah, thanks. So the next item is the website relaunch proposal, and that's item 7.
uh,
And oh,
Did you want to talk about the annual report that the committee needs to write now that you've heard the audit?
oh, you know what? I must be looking at the old agenda. I must have pulled up the wrong one. Sorry. I do. I do. All right. So that's our next steps. We need to write the annual report, and is anyone interested in participating in writing the report? And do I see hand?
So, Andrea, have you volunteered to be on that committee?
I will. Okay.
Fine, then I will also.
Okay, so I think that given the how many members are on the committee, there can only be 2 of us at this point. So it will be you and I that will be writing the report, and I will reach out to staff for some information and reach out to you for availability and timelines to review what we think needs to go in the report, and we'll work with staff on this. Okay.
Look forward to it.
All right. Thanks so much. And so, Jeff, I forget, how much longer can you be with us? So
I have about 15, little less than 15 minutes.
okay. So we are on the website relaunch.
That's right.
Okay. And so Marcus Crowley, would you like to give us a report on this?
Well, I will say a little bit about it. We had a good meeting. It was so long ago, I can't remember a lot of the details. But the upshot was that we discussed a few of the issues that we would like to change. And we had the experts there to help answer the questions on what's changeable and what's not changeable, what's practical and what's not practical. So other than that, we really didn't, we don't have much to report here. So we looked at the meeting. I do appreciate that the application form has been modernized so that it is fillable. I haven't really checked it to see if one can fill it out online and then click send, and the district receives the application. But that is something that we would really like to have happen. So we haven't really voted on anything or made any stronger recommendations. It's mostly just questions, and the district has answered our questions. Mark and the other experts said, well, that's practical, and we can do this and we can't do that, and this sort of. So really, as far as I'm concerned, the next step is to have another subcommittee meeting with me and whoever Stacy's replacement is. Okay, Jeff, I'd love to work with you on that. And so we just move forward. So are there any questions, or maybe Mark Johnson has some other comments that would better inform this meeting, the people at this meeting?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Crawley. So following, we had a really wonderful meeting with Marcus and Jeff and Stacy in November, right before the holidays. And we looked closely at this website, which Marcus shared with us, which is the West Contra Costa Unified School District website for their bond organization. And we looked at the the navigation here. And so the idea was to kind of create this kind of navigation outside of the Build Peralta website, which is more of a promotional website for the bond program. And following that conversation that we had in November, my team went ahead and started mocking things up. So this is what, and ignore the text. We just pulled all of this text straight from the Build Peralta website. So what I hope you can look at is the, up here, the navigational breadcrumbs that we have, the header language and image, and the navigation menu that we've got on the right-hand side, which basically mirrors our site design doesn't allow us to do this format of menu, this horizontal format. Our template is a vertical navigational menu that appears in the right-hand side of every page. When you look at it as a desktop or a laptop, when you look at it on a mobile device, it's really easy to navigate. These links are all at a drop down that you see at the top. So we have place for membership and the application process for new members, and we've had some practice. I think this is still pointing to a PDF, but for those who've been paying attention about our Board of Trustees vacancy, the application that we have for people that are interested in serving as the Area 2 Board of Trustee, they fill out an online application. It's all done online, and it sends an email to me with the information. So we can do that with the Bond Measures Oversight Committee. So we don't even need to bother with the interactive PDF that we have now. Whoops, okay. So I think what we were looking for is direction from the committee. Do you like this kind of repackaging of the Oversight Committee as part of the regular Peralta website, as opposed to being put within the Build Peralta website? And if you vote to approve, then we will take this concept and make it live with updated content.
Well, I think that this is an improvement. And I think that our subcommittee certainly can get answers. I don't think that we are enabled to actually make changes, but some of the changes that I've been trying to achieve is, one, change the BMOC to a CBOC, and so that would be up to our CBOC membership to approve that.
It's actually the name of the committee is from the bylaws that were written by the Board of Trustees.
Yes, and I would think that the next step would be for our CBOC, our complete committee, to ask for that change. I don't think that the subcommittee is empowered to ask the board to make that change.
So what I would suggest is that we agendize that for next meeting, okay?
Okay.
Making that change. And come back to focusing on this one for this meeting on giving staff an action to go ahead and put this live after they drop in some wording that might be, I will be on the subcommittee with you if you want, Marcus, that they move some of this wording around. But I like the idea that this is, to me, it's a very independent piece now on their site. So I'm not bothered at all by it saying bond measure oversight committee before it would go live. And I know, so Jeff has some thoughts on this, I think.
I think when we had this discussion in the subcommittee, it was going to be the president's opening letter, I think, for the report that we give. I think, if Marcus, correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought that was what we had said, that it would be Andrea's letter.
Say that again slowly.
Yeah, so in the, the report that we generate, the last time we had Andrea do a cover letter from the president of the Oversight Committee. And we talked about taking that letter and have that be the opening page, the landing page for the Bond Measure Oversight Committee.
That's right. It would replace this "thank you, voters" verbiage.
Yeah, just wanted to confirm. I think that was what we had talked about.
Yes, yes, sir.
Now the gray matter's still working. All right.
There you go.
So as I said at our subcommittee meeting, I don't think it is part of the duty or even is desirable for the CBOC, for the Oversight Committee, to be thanking the voters for passing the bond. I think that the district should thank the voters someplace else other than on the Oversight Committees. Our job is accountability, not promotion.
I agree with you. I think what Mark had said, though, was that he had just put that in as a filler, so we didn't look at a blank page. I think we're all in agreement that something else is going to go there.
So what I'm understanding,
I'm just what my team did is they just pulled the content directly from the Build Peralta site. So we haven't done the editorial that was discussed at the last subcommittee meeting. But you're exactly right. And Mr. Crawley, 100% agree. We will get rid of the "thank you, taxpayer" language, and we'll replace that, as we had discussed back in November, with the text from Chair Dawson's the last annual report.
Okay,
Great.
that sounds good.
so
Yes,
what
thank
I
you,
would,
Mark.
yeah, thank you, Mark. So what I'd like to propose is that these
How do
changes.
I change? Thank you, Mark. Oh, wait. Oh, that wasn't the text you wanted on.
There you go. So what I would like to propose is that you continue with the edits and it come back to a subcommittee, and that can either be Jeff and Marcus or Marcus and I, but we need two of us, and that we come to some agreement prior to next month's meeting and we post it, and then hopefully it can go live on the website.
That's great.
Yeah, sounds good. Yes, that's great.
Okay. So do you and Marcus want to edit what? Is that agreeable with the two of you to work with Mark Johnson after he drops in the language into the body of this?
Yes, Andrea, thank you. Yes, I think that we should have another subcommittee meeting. We could schedule it for 2 weeks from today, if that's okay, while it's still fresh on our mind. And so we're not under the gun to hurry up and do something before the next meeting. So 2 weeks sounds about right to me.
Mark, would you be able to make those changes within a 2-week period?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, and Marcus, I'm happy to stay on the committee for some continuity purposes, if nothing else.
Great, okay.
Yeah, one thing I would ask, if there's a chance, Mark, we could get a link to the changes a day or ahead of time, so we'd have a chance to actually look at it in detail.
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm good.
Okay. Okay, sounds good, committee members.
Okay,
Crowley and
so,
Compre.
so regarding the subcommittee meeting, Mark Johnson, are you going to schedule that, or do I need to do a Zoom or what?
Were we gonna have it at 5:30? Does that
Yes,
work
we
for,
could have it at 5:30, 2 weeks from today.
does that work for you, Jeff?
I'm gonna get my piece of granite and my chisel and hammer out.
Um.
So
Yes,
that would be the
I
22nd. Just out of respect for staff, Marcus, I'm semi-retired. Maybe if it would be better, thinking of staff's time to do it while they're on the clock during the day. If you don't mind, maybe earlier.
as it happens, I have all day on the 22nd open. Don't tell anybody because it'll fill up.
I would prefer it to be as late in the afternoon as you guys can handle.
Does
Would,
four-ish work? Four-ish work
Yeah,
for
that's
you?
okay.
that works for me.
4 works for me.
All right.
I'll chisel it in.
Okay, I'll send you the Zoom info.
Okay. I'm going to move on really quickly, but I'm going to ask if we have any public comment on this item.
No
Can
hands
we
are.
see the agenda, please, so that we can see what we're either voting on or not
Well, we're-
talking about?
Well, we're not, yeah,
So
we're on.
So
I
I'm
did-
gonna
I did,
need to, I'm
I
gonna
know.
need to go, but I believe we still have a quorum with Yusuf.
Right. And so I just wanted 1 minute of your time before you left, and just to say to the committee members and staff that there was a wonderful groundbreaking at the Merritt College Child Development Center project. And I went to it, and you know, there was a number of dignitary there. There was a contractor. There was many in the community were there. And so we will be following that project. It's up at Merritt College, and Mark Johnson did a wonderful job of essentially, I guess, chairing all the, you know, the introductions on behalf of the chancellor who was sick. And so anyway, I'm hoping that we can do some more of these kind of site visits in the future. And I think it's really kind of the fun part of our job is to really see the fruition of bond projects coming down the pike. So anyway, just wanted to say that before you left, Jeff, and I appreciate your time tonight. And so we'll continue on and finish the meeting with Mr. Herbert being still present.
Okay, great. The only
All
thing
right,
I ask
thanks.
is please don't volunteer me for anything.
Okay.
Thanks a lot,
Thank you.
everybody.
All right, take care.
Bye-bye.
All right. So
Oh, okay, so regarding next meeting's agenda, are we there yet?
no. So that was item 9. It was the groundbreaking. It was an informational item. Okay.
Okay.
So I any public comment on that item?
Thank you for the kind words.
Yeah.
Mark did a great job. Great
he
great
did.
job.
He did a great job. It was a lovely event, and it was, yeah. Okay, and so we are on to site visit to College of Alameda, and I asked that this be put on the agenda because once again, I think it would, if we could make it happen, that there's an option to do a site visit to the college and see the new building and get a tour. I think it would be interesting and helpful to us, and it would be optional. We don't have to have a quorum to go there. It is a site visit. So I don't know what you think of that, Marcus Crowley, but, and Herbert?
Well, if
If-
somebody wants to do that, that's great. I'm not interested in doing it.
Okay, all right,
Yeah.
so I
I
think
think it's a
it,
great idea. I'm sorry, Andre. I think it's a great idea. Just let me know the schedule and the times about it, and that'll be fine.
okay, so let's work something out. At least, I think maybe what we can do is poll the committee who's interested in going or not, and then try and at least make schedule a time that those that are interested can go, that works for staff to meet us there and give us the tour. Okay.
Sounds great. Thank you.
All right. Appreciate that. So, and just if any public is hearing and listens to this tape, public is also invited to these, so it will be posted. It is required to be posted so others could come and take the tour too. So now I will move on to monthly meeting schedule and frequency. And I think we already have a meeting schedule, and so I would like to table more discussion on this until Jeff Canberra can be involved in this. But I had some thinking about this of maybe not having a monthly meeting, but 8 months of the year. And in particular, I was thinking that the summer, July and August, and possibly December and January, that we not have our meetings, CBOC meetings, that we have 8 a year instead of 12, because summer is the busiest time for staff with construction, and we get a really great report in September of what has transpired. And then in December, it's, I think, difficult for a lot of people to make a December meeting. And so December and January, we're getting ready to, the auditors are still working in the fall and possibly finishing the report up in January. So they come to us in February like they have this evening. And so I want those who are in attendance this evening, Mr. Crowley and Mr. Herbert, to really think about your thoughts on this for the next meeting, and we can discuss it again. So
Okay, we can discuss it next time.
Yes,
okay.
thank you, Andre.
Thank you. All right. So any public comment on this? Mr. Johnson, Mark?
I see no hands raised.
Okay. So now we are on to item 12, next meeting agenda recommendations. Mr. Crowley, do you have?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Okay.
I think next meeting, we should elect a vice chair.
I would agree with you. Okay.
Okay,
So we will put that on the schedule for next meeting. Any other comments? Any public comments on this item, Mark Johnson?
If I may, capturing other items from this agenda, I think we would have a follow-up website discussion, maybe a status for annual report, and then an update on site visit. Is that fair?
Yes, I think that's good. Thank you.
Mhm.
So kind of new business is 12 and 13 are somewhat the same, I think, but Marcus Crowley or Mr. Herbert, do you have any other thoughts on new business?
Andrea, I don't right now, but once I start thinking more seriously about it, and I'd like to be able to email you recommendations. Okay?
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you.
Oh, okay.
All right.
Same here, Andre. Excuse me. Not right this moment, but when I do, I'll email them to Mark and the committee. I'll you as well too.
Yeah. So the way, yeah. Thank you. It wouldn't be to the committee because it's a violation of the Brown Act,
Oh.
but you can email them to myself, and you can copy staff, Mark Johnson and Etheria Smith, if you'd like to. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. All right. So I think we are to adjournment.
At 6:50.
Do we
Okay.
all agree? All right.
Thank you.
Well, thank you all, and take care. And I appreciate Dr. Jones attending, and S. Brooks. I'm sorry. What is your first name?
Sean Brooks.
Sean
with
Brooks.
Berkeley City College.
Yeah, I came, I tuned in 2 minutes late, so I didn't get to say thank you to all, to those in attendance, and Amy Marshall also, and Vice Chancellor Smith. Thank you all. All right.
Thank you,
I'll take-
everyone.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank
take
you. Good
care.
evening.
All
Bye-bye.
right. Bye-bye.